all are being so good with the time limit. I'm just impressed with the time limit and the writing. Next. I know this is out of order. I think I told you, readers. So this is to just keep you on your toes. Just when you think you're next, you're not. Lucas, come on down. Lucas Schaefer.
I'm going to read a little from my novel in progress. This is not the beginning, but I don't think you need anything. Belinda St. James, not her real name, Playboy Playmate of the Month, April 1978, dancer at Expose, 1979 to 1983, stylist at Sexy Scissors, on and off, 1983 to 1991, Sports Clips, 1993 to 1996, and the hip new Fresh on South Congress, 3 fraught days, March 1997, knew how to make a little money on the side. For years, she'd made ends meet cutting hair after hours in her home, number 2E at the Shady Creek condominiums on South 1st Street. Belinda had convinced her plumber neighbor to covertly install a salon basin in her living room. We traded parts for labor, she liked to say. And offered her patrons peppermint starlights, which she kept in a ceramic seashell on her cutting table and received in pilfered half-pound boxes from a ponytailed cashier at Jason's Deli in exchange for a $10 touch-up every 6 weeks. She also worked Monday through Thursday evenings as a concierge at the Residence Inn on West 6th Street, serving all-you-can-eat wings and quesadillas out of hot trays in the VIP lounge, then cleaning the place up afterward. And every Saturday afternoon at the back of aisle 32 in Twin Liquors as brand ambassador for a ghastly tequila called Colima Blue. They ought to call me an off-brand ambassador, was her go-to line. Belinda had red, wavy hair and freckles and a small gap between her front teeth. Motherhood had rounded her out some, but she'd mostly kept her figure. And if she carried a little more in her belly than she'd have liked, well, she still had her 3 B's, booty, bust, and brains, and knew when and how to employ each of them, always with one objective in mind, to maintain the sovereign state of Miss Belinda St. James. Yes, over 41 years, Miss Belinda had learned a little something about how to stay solvent in this big, nasty world. And though she was not living the life she imagined for herself in the days and months after she bared her body for 18% of all American college males 2 decades prior, she made her own money, owned her own home, and was beholden to no man, not even you, she liked to remind the 16-year-old. For Belinda St. James, that independence was threatened at 1 p.m. on the first day of June 1998, when she returned home from an afternoon of errands to find a post-it taped to her door. Janine, read the post-it. Come over as soon as you get this. Bev in number 1E. Bev Meese, 67, lived directly below Belinda. Bev was Shady Creek's one-woman neighborhood watch, known for documenting, via 1989 Nikon Teletouch 300, all manner of infraction, vehicles parked in fire lanes, pets she suspected were over the 20-pound limit, and mailing her findings to the property management company via media mail. Though Bev knew about her upstairs neighbor's illegal activities, she knew too that Belinda was doing her best, raising a troubled soul to boot. And so Bev Meese pretended not to notice when the judges and lobbyists who Belinda had poached from her previous employers parked their pickups in the guest spots, nor when they returned 15 minutes later, necks shaved and talcumed, Belinda's flirty style evident in the sprightly way they hoisted themselves into their trucks. Bev Meese may have liked a good rule, but she was Christian first. So long as it didn't affect her well-being, she wasn't going to stand in the way of a woman feeding her family. Christian, widow, grandmother, mother, also a 13-year cocker rescue volunteer. If they've got another few years of life, they'll go to a family, she'd once told Belinda with a laugh shrug. If they're bleeding out the eyes, they come to me. And a dedicated thrifter, she'd given Belinda over the years the fold-out couch on which the 16-year-old slept, the 2 cast-iron chairs on Belinda's front balcony, even the potted pencil cactus that lived between them. "Motherfuck it," Belinda declared, tearing the note off her door. The Shady Creek condominiums faced onto the parking lot like at a drive-up motel, and now Miss Belinda made her way down the same exterior staircase she'd come up. Because if she knew one thing about Bev Niece's post-its, it was that, like tumors, it was best to determine quickly if they were malignant or benign. Belinda rang the doorbell. This triggered the familiar caterwauls of Bev's latest batch of dying coppers, the familiar unlatching of the brass chain door guard, the familiar sight of Beverly Meese, liver-spotted with a swish of white hair that the 16-year-old oft noted was reminiscent of Ursula in the Little Mermaid. Hunched down and holding those bloody-eyed beasts at bay. "Janine," said Bev, looking up from her hunch. "I don't mean to be and here she mouthed, pain in the ass, but would you come look at this with me?" Bev's own apartment was covered in a thick maroon carpet that Belinda swore was damp, though she'd never dared set foot in the place barefoot. She'd recently read a book on the art of minimalism, Bev had, and had cleared everything out but the essentials. Bev led Belinda into the living room, empty but for a floral print couch in front of a television and a black coffee table on which laid a thick tome called Understanding the End Times, a bookmark slipped in about page 3. "You Spartan as a monk," said Belinda, but Bev wasn't paying attention. She was looking up. There, in the plaster ceiling, directly above where Bev Niece sat each evening to watch the local news, was an ominous brown water stain. A water stain so severe that the plaster had begun to puff out along the perimeter, a stain in the precise shape of the bottom of Miss Belinda St. James's salon basin. "Oh my word, is it just me, or is that little spot on your ceiling in the exact outline of Jesus Christ?" cried Belinda. Bev Niece crossed her arms. "Miss Belinda St. James may not have played by every little rule. You think those Wall Street bankers are dotting every I?" she once snapped at the 16-year-old who'd given her lip for trying to apply for disability insurance on account of her chronic sciatica. But girl knew how to get her hustle on. It had cost hundreds of dollars to pull the plaster out of the ceiling. That's assuming there wasn't black mold up there, which it probably was, not to mention the lost revenue of having to cancel all her clients until God knows when. "Motherfuck it," she repeated, started back up the stairs. When Belinda returned to number 2E, she found the 16-year-old sitting cross-legged on one of the cast irons, listening to Belinda's beat-up old Discman. Belinda bent down and gently lifted one of the earphones. "Your hair's getting too long." The kid stared at her. "What do you want?" "I need the place for an hour," she said. The 16-year-old put the earphone back in place and didn't say a word. Belinda had worked the phone sex hotline whenever they needed a little extra something. Didn't mind it much, neither. The pay was insulting, but not piss poor, and she could work from home, just gave the dispatcher her code, and calls came straight to her landline. Belinda was an old pro, which meant she could scrub dishes or fold laundry, or if there was no housework or she wasn't in the mood to do it, sit in her salon chair and watch Another World, sometimes not even that softly. All the while tonguing and licking and clenching some fat trucker's dirt-caked finger 3 inches up her poon. She would have been fine using her own voice. Sex was sex was sex. But the proprietor of this operation, a Mr. Jim Camden of Spur, Texas, had been a Slavic studies major back at Texas Tech. Said he was committed to keeping this thing Eastern European. As a result, Belinda spoke in a vague Soviet asking her callers if they liked big-titted Estonian girl, or instructing them to get down between thick Ukrainian thighs. Who called the 900 number? Doctors, butchers, teachers, electricians, businessmen, the unemployed, always murmuring like their wives were in the next room, which half the time Belinda assumed they were. Guys who like to spank or get spanked, pee or peed on, incest, bondage, some good old-fashioned boinking. Didn't matter if you were a pervy piggy pounding your Pomeranian or a syrupy suitor whispering sweet nothings to your phone whore with a heart of gold. By night's end, the tighty-whities were going in the hamper. Happy penises are all alike, Mr. Jim Camden had told her years before. when she'd answered her ad in the back of the Chronicle looking for voice actresses in the mold of Reza Gorbachev. She could hear him snapping chewing gum, the creak of his chair as he threw his cowboy boots on the desk. And unhappy penises, all alike too. $2.99 a minute and 27 cents went to her. Belinda's aliases were Natalia, Natasha, Sasha, or Sabrina. And if the men noticed that Natalia, Natasha, Sasha, and Sabrina all sounded more or less the same, or if they noticed that sometimes Natalia, Natasha, Sasha, and Sabrina sounded altogether different, Mr. Jim Camden, who took in the remaining $2.72 a minute, minus what he promised Belinda was substantial overhead, had Natalia's, Natasha's, Sasha's, and Sabrina's from Amarillo to the border. They never said anything to Belinda, probably because if you're laying out $62.79 for 21 minutes of oral, you don't want to spend too much time litigating who's who. 27 cents a minute, $16.20 an hour, 40 hours, and she could pay the monthly HOA. And so on that June evening in 1998, after Bev Meese showed Belinda the stain on her ceiling, Belinda locked her door and called the dispatcher, and after the dispatcher put her on hold, paced the oak laminate, then peeked through the blinds to make sure the 16-year-old still had Belinda's headphones on. If she had to have fake sex and a fake accent to keep a real roof over their real heads, Belinda didn't need her one and only hearing her as she did it.